Have you ever, like, walked through a city after a huge storm? Everything's kind of eerie and empty,
Yeah.
And the usual sounds, the hum of life you usually hear is just gone.
Yeah.
It's that's kind of what we're looking at today. We're diving into this silence
Yeah.
that kind of followed the Black Death.
Right.
And this silence was just it echoed through all of history.
Yeah.
So we're going way back in time to when, this invisible enemy just swept across all of Europe and left, obviously unimaginable loss. But the stillness.
Right.
And that's what's so interesting to me, right?
Yeah.
This stillness just spoke volumes.
Yeah.
But where are we going to get all this information about,
Well,
this silence, this aftermath?
historians have a way of digging up some really bizarre facts.
Yeah.
Fascinating, but bizarre.
So to really get a grasp on this whole silence thing, we got to go back, way back to the 1300s.
Okay.
When the plague was just wreaking havoc. And it wasn't just, the plague itself. It was this Yersinia pestis bacteria.
Right.
And that was just hitching a ride on these fleas. And the fleas were on rats.
Of course, yeah.
And so it's more than just the rats, though.
Right.
It's how fast this thing spread.
Yeah,
It was wiping out entire villages.
It's scary to think about.
It is. And just the terror, the fear of watching your loved ones just die. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, they get these painful boils.
Horrible.
And these fevers that just wouldn't quit. And then finally that horrific, blackening of the skin.
Right.
That's how it got its name.
Yeah, that's how it got its name, the Black Death. And I can't even begin to imagine what must have been going through people's minds at the time.
Oh, I know.
The fear, the desperation, they had no idea what was causing it.
Right. They had no scientific understanding at all.
None whatsoever. And they were attributing it to all sorts of things.
Like what? Give me some examples. What were they saying?
Some people thought it was God's wrath, a punishment for their sins.
Oh, wow.
Others blamed it on, the alignment of the stars.
Really?
Can you imagine living with that kind of fear and uncertainty?
That's wild.
Yeah.
But what I find really interesting, and this is where I kind of want to focus, is this whole idea of the silence afterward.
Right.
Like, it wasn't just that it was quiet, right?
No, not at all.
What was it like?
It was, sources from the time, they described these deserted streets, homes just completely abandoned.
Wow.
And the thing is, it was the sudden absence of all those everyday sounds that we just completely take for granted.
Right.
Laughter, music, the hustle and bustle of the marketplace.
Like it just stopped.
All gone. And it's that silence, that's what would have been really haunting. That constant reminder of everything that's lost, a world completely turned upside down.
So then this silence, it's almost like its own character in this whole thing.
Absolutely.
This haunting presence, this reminder.
Actually,
But how did it actually change Europe, like for good?
Well, for one thing, it completely upended the social order. Think about it. So many people died, both rich and poor,
Okay.
that it created this weird labor shortage. And when that happens, the people who are left, the workers, they suddenly have a lot more power.
Right, supply and demand.
Exactly.
Right.
And some historians actually think that this shift in power, this newfound leverage for the peasants and the laborers, that actually contributed to the decline of feudalism.
Wow. So the Black Death helped bring an end to feudalism.
It's definitely one theory, and a compelling one, because for centuries, that system was the rule. It was just how society worked. But after the Black Death, things could never really go back to the way they were.
Wow. So, like we were talking about, from this horrible silence, change did occur.
Yes.
What about culturally? Did any of this trauma, did it find a voice in art, religion?
Oh, absolutely. Art from that time period is, well, it's really hard to miss the impact. Let me just put it that way.
I bet.
Death, it's everywhere. It's this central theme. And it's often depicted in incredibly graphic detail.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And the thing is, it's not just about some kind of morbid fascination. It was about their way of processing the trauma.
Right.
They were grappling with mortality head on. They had to.
So they took this silence, this huge, heavy silence, and gave it a voice through art.
In a way, yeah. They found a way to confront it, to express it even.
So fascinating. What about religion, though? Anything there?
Well, you see both sides of the coin. You see people clinging more tightly to their faith.
Sure.
They wanted comfort, solace. They wanted answers.
Makes sense.
But then there were others who started to really question the church's authority.
Really?
Yeah, they'd say, if God is all-powerful and all-loving, then why did this happen? Why did so many people have to suffer?
Wow, so the plague really shook people's faith.
For some people, yes, absolutely. They started looking for answers elsewhere.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
This one event, this pandemic, just like we recently experienced,
Right.
it just reverberated through every part of life.
Yeah.
The Black Death, it wasn't just some biological thing. It was like a cultural, social, spiritual
Everything.
event.
It touched everything.
Its echoes, they were felt for centuries.
Definitely.
And it makes you think, right,
Yeah.
how do we deal with this kind of collective trauma, this silence that's just kind of lingering?
Yeah, how do we rebuild?
How do we even begin to find hope?
It's a question that we all face, really.
How do we find resilience when faced with such just profound loss?
It's a journey, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a journey, and one that we all have to take sometimes.
For sure.
Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this deep dive, but it gives us a lot to think about.
It really does.